Mommy, tell me what to.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ATP Live. It's my pleasure to welcome you this morning. And this morning, we're going to be talking about infections, which is also one of the common topics that parents like to ask questions a lot about. I have with me also in the studio Sophia, who is going to be moderating with us. Sophia, you're welcome.
Thank you, ma. Good morning, ma.
Good morning. So I'll just say, please share the video, and also if you have questions, kindly ask in the comment sections and try and ask your questions early so that we can try to take them on time. We just have 1 hour for the show. So share the video on your timeline, on your pages, in groups where you have permission to do so. And then you can also drop your questions for us, and we'll be very, very happy to answer that. So you're all welcome to ATP Live this morning. All right, so let's kick on. Sophia.
Ma. Thank you, ma. Okay, our topic this morning is infection in children. So we'd like to know, ma, what exactly is infection and how do our children get them?
Okay, so thank you. So when we talk about infections, we're talking about before I go into the definition, because sometimes I like to use clear words for parents to understand. So when we talk about, there are some organisms, there are some life, or what we call some other living things in the environment that are very, very small, that most of us cannot see with our eyes. And so when such things get into the body, they can, into the body of human beings, they can cause some diseases. And that is what we call infection. So infection basically is the disease or the condition that is arise as a result of those microorganisms, those living things that are so tiny for the physical eyes to see, when they get into the body and they attack our body. And that is what we meant by infection. So what kind of organism are we talking about here? We're talking about things like viruses, things like bacteria, sometimes some tiny animals, what we call protozoas as well. So when they get into the body of human being, normally our body tries to fight them. Our body has its own immune system that tends to fight these microorganisms or germs or whatever you want to call them. But sometimes they seem so tiny, they sometimes can overpower our own body system, and that can now lead to what we call infections. So basically, that is what infections means. So there are many kind of infections. So depending on the kind of organisms or the kind of germ or the kind of microorganism that is attacking the body. So we talk of things like viral infections. We talk of things like bacterial infections. We talk of things like fungal infection. We talk so different kind of infections. So depending on the particular microorganism or the particular germ that is attacking the body. So that's what we mean by infections. And there are many ways infections can manifest. One of the commonest ways in which it manifests is what we call, there could be fever. In other words, the body of the children may be hot. Sometimes the child will have other symptoms, like they could be vomiting, they could be having body pains, even malaria is an infection in a way due to a protozoa. So there could be so many things that could be happening in the body at the same time that tells us that something is going on that is not right here. And those are the symptoms that we, the doctors, will see that will make us suspect, oh, this may be an infection. And that infection sometimes it can be on the part of the body that we can see, just on the external surfaces. So you can have infection in your hands, you can have infection on your leg, on your skin, on your mouth, and all that, in the eyes. But sometimes it is in the blood system. So this is like overwhelming, it's all over the blood. Or even each organ of the body can also have infection, like you can have infection in the lungs, in the heart. There's no place where these organisms, when they get entrance to, there's no place where they cannot affect. So that's basically what we mean by infection, and those are the ways by which they manifest. And because sometimes it's not, depending on whether the infection is something that is affecting only a particular side of the body, which we call a local infection, or it's actually going on in the whole blood system, what we call like a sepsis, kind of a picture, then the manifestation will be different. And we need to know, and sometimes the symptoms will be similar to some other conditions that are not infectious. So for example, a cough can be a sign of infection in the lungs, what we call pneumonia. But sometimes it could just also be a sign of something that is non-infectious, like asthma, for example. So sometimes it's difficult to know, is it an infection, is it not an infection, until we have the whole picture, which will include seeing the child physically, doing some tests and all that. So basically that is how we know infections, and we make the diagnosis of infections, and then we want to know which kind of organism it is. And then luckily we have what we call antimicrobials or infectious agents. So things like antibiotics, which is basically for bacterial infections. We have antiviral medications, which is for viruses. We have antimicrobial as well, something like, for example, your anti-malaria drugs, for example. So we have medications that we can use to treat infections. But for most infections, the earlier we pick it up and the earlier we start using those treatments, the better for them. But the thing about infection is that sometimes those microorganisms, those tiny, those very invisible, sometimes they are very wise as well. So they can develop what we call resistance against some of those agents that we normally use to treat them. And that is why we always talk about the fact that we need to be careful the way we use medication, the way we use antibiotics, so that we don't encourage that resistance, because inappropriate use of antimicrobial agents is what encourages resistance against them. And those are the things that will now lead to us not being able to overcome infections. And if we cannot overcome it, sometimes infection can lead to death. So that is why it's very, very important that we have this discussion today. So we'll start taking our questions, because again, we don't want to rush at the end. So can we go on with the questions now?
Okay, ma'am. Someone is asking, good morning, ma'am. My daughter of 2 years' body is always hot. She is not stooling or vomiting, just hotness of the body. I have treated her for malaria and typhoid. What might be the cause, please?
So no, can you read the question I posted on the group, on the wall? So that we take that one.
Okay, ma. Sai is saying, my son has been stooling since morning and seems to be running temperature. The stool smells so much. He has stooled about 3 times from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Could it be infection?
Thank you, Sai, for that question. So basically, like we said, infection, the symptoms of infection can be similar to things that are non-infectious, but usually the commonest reason why a child who is stooling and having fever is somewhat like an infection. For example, if it's just stooling, for example, if you ate something like food poisoning, or you are eating something you're allergic to, you could also stool, or maybe the food doesn't go well with you, or there's indigestion, you could also stool. But because there's agitated fever, that's somewhat like what we call a gastroenteritis. What that means is that there's an infection in the stomach and the intestine lining, and that is what is causing this diarrhea. So the child is stooling, is having fever, and the stool is also foul smelling. So that's me. I agree with you that looks like an infection within the what we call the gastrointestinal tract or the digestive tract. So what you need to do is to make sure that you start giving ORS. Now, like I said, there are different causes of infection. Like for this kind of a child now, it could just be the a virus causing this diarrhea. Sometimes it may not be a virus, it may just be a bacteria. So it's difficult to say at this stage which one it is. But we know from our experience as doctors that the commonest cause of diarrhea in children is a virus, which requires no antibiotics. Antibiotics are for bacterial infection, not for viruses. Most time viruses, they don't require any specific, they may not have specific antiviral agent. Only very few viruses have specific antiviral agent. So the commonest way to treat what your child is having is to give ORS and oral zinc to address diarrhea. And then, because dehydration can also cause fever, then if the child is not getting better, then you really need to take him to the hospital for further treatment. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so Margaret, I know, is asking, good morning, what is the best treatment for psoriasis? Psoriasis is a dermatological condition, and you really need to see your dermatologist, because the management, and it's not really like a childhood infection or something common in children. So I will encourage you that you should take your child to see a dermatologist, or to take whoever has that psoriasis to see a dermatologist for further treatment. Now, Jennifer is asking, my daughter has been coughing for so long. I don't know what the question is, because your daughter has been coughing for so long. I guess you're trying to ask me whether the cough is infection or not. If that's what you're asking, okay, I think we can address that. So a child who's been coughing for so long, we call it chronic cough. Now, chronic cough could be due to infections, like, for example, things like tuberculosis is a bacterial infection, or it could be due to things that are not infectious, like asthma as well. So, like I said, to know whether it is a infectious cause like tuberculosis, or whether it's something like asthma, you definitely need to see a doctor. So I would say to parents, if your child is coughing for more than 2 weeks, it has become chronic cough, and at that point you really need to take the child to see a doctor, preferably a pediatrician, for further treatment. So Jennifer, it's better you take that child to see a pediatrician, so that they can know whether is it infectious or not, or whether, and then it's depending, because, for example, if child is not an infectious cause and you are giving antibiotics, you are developing antibiotic resistance, and you're still not treating what this child has. So the earlier you get to see a professional, the better. So Juruwe is asking, Blessing is asking, my daughter, good morning, ma, good morning. My daughter of 2 years old is always hot. She's not stooling or vomiting, just hotness of the body. I've treated her for malaria and typhoid. What might be the cause? Now, thank you so much for that question. And I really need to address this question, because I get a lot of this kind of question when children have fever, and everybody just think the only 2 things that can cause fever in children is either malaria or typhoid. It's a very rampant belief system in Nigeria, and especially in Lagos. So people go to private hospitals, and the only diagnosis they get for every fever is either malaria or typhoid fever. That's a very dangerous assumption. So we've taken a topic on fever before. Now, fever is a manifestation of so many things. I always say there are like 1,001 things that can cause fever in children. Infections is, of course, the major part of it, but there are so many infections. So malaria is one, typhoid fever is one, but there are so many other infections. So like I told you, infection can occur in virtually all the organs of the body. So it could be a pneumonia, it could be a tonsillitis, it could be an adenoid infection, it could be a urinary tract infection. And people sometimes don't look for these infections in other places. And so that is why it's important that when your children are sick, you go to a proper hospital. And that's one of the reasons I recommend proper hospitals like government hospitals, where they can actually evaluate the child, they listen to the child, they examine the child, because sometimes it is through the examination, sometimes it's by looking into the ears that we will now pick up that, oh, it's an ear infection. It's by looking into the throat that we can pick up, oh, it's a tonsillitis. But people just say, oh, fever and all that, then the next thing it is malaria, or they just go and do malaria tests or typhoid tests, and those are the only two things. No, without even touching the child. So there's no way you will know whether that child has malaria or other infection like ear infections or throat infection. People don't even do urine tests, urinary tract infection. So there are so many reasons why a child could be having fever. So it is very dangerous. And for those of you who go to hospital where every time your children have fever, the only diagnosis they give you is malaria and typhoid, I change your hospitals. Stop going to those doctors. I'm very serious about it. Better go to a hospital where a doctor will actually physically examine your child and probably do something before telling you what is wrong. But if every time you go to hospital is only malaria and typhoid, you are in a very dangerous situation. So back to Blessing. Your child has been having fever for so long, you really need to see a pediatrician. You really need to take this child to preferably a teaching hospital, because even a child could be having fever from cancer. It's one of the reasons why a child could have fever for so long. And sometimes people don't look for all these things, and people don't know. Everything is malaria. They will keep treating malaria and typhoid. And by the time we now pick up the diagnosis, it's too late. So please, if your child is having fever, even if you think it's malaria, you feel malaria, and the child is not better, then that's the time to really make sure that you see a professional in the first place. And that's what I'm going to recommend for Blessing. So please take your child to see a pediatrician, and then they will address that. Thank you. So Ogo is asking, what is the cause of constant coughing and catarrh even after treatment? So I think we did that during our last group discussion, where Dr. Okore addressed the topic of allergic rhinitis. One of the common cause of recurrent catarrh and cough is allergic rhinitis. So again, it boils down to making sure that you see the right professionals, making sure that they examine your child properly, making sure that they make the right diagnosis. So if your child has been treated for cough, catarrh, don't always assume it's infection and you just keep on loading the children with antibiotics. And that's why we have so much causes of antibiotic resistance. So much the World Health Organization has declared antibiotic resistance as a major crisis that needs to be addressed quickly, because very soon you can imagine what happens in a world where there's infection and we don't have the right antibiotics to treat it. It means basically that people are going to be dying. That's fatal. That's just what it means. And what happens is when people use antibiotics when it's not necessary, like for example, a child who is having allergic rhinitis do not require antibiotics, but people just think it's coughing. They just antibiotics left, right, and center. Especially in a country where people can just walk into a pharmacy shop and buy antibiotics, which is really on its own should not be happening. People should need a doctor's prescription to buy antibiotics. And I know all the people that are on the table I'm shaking this morning, it's time to repair, because it's a dangerous thing we're doing to our children. We can become like other civilized countries where people need a prescription. We should not put the monetary gain over the health of our children. Let's all our pharmacy shops just insisting on getting prescription before they give out antibiotics. That way it will help us reduce all this resistance issue that we're having. So Ogo, I hope I've answered your question. So if your child has been having cough, catarrh, and it's not better, then you really need to see a pediatrician. And I'm strongly suspecting it could be something else. It is not everything that is infections. it is not. There are so many other things, but infection is common, yes, but it's not the only thing that could cause cough, catarrh, and all that. Okay, I hope that is helpful. Now I'm going on to Esther Chibweze. Esther Chibweze is asking, my 9-year-old daughter, most times her body would be hot and our body will be scratching her and you will see all her skin swollen up and reddish in color. So that is allergy. That's a very typical, very easy description, very classical description of a child who is having an allergic reaction. So she scratches, and so that is not infection. That is sounds more like an allergic reaction. And the most important thing for you to discover as a parent is what is causing the allergy. What is this child allergic to? And that is really a $1 million question, because it could be anything. It could be from the food, it could be from the water, it could be from the cream, it could be from the soap, it could be from the clothes, it could be anything. It could be drugs, it could even be things like you give, like some of the juices, all these snacks and things you buy. So you really need to see a doctor who can, maybe you yourself, you may want to do a lot more observation and be watching and seeing whether what normally happens just before she starts scratching. Is it the day we gave this particular food, or is it the day we use this particular thing? Or sometimes if you also are very observant, taking what we call a diary, you may be able to figure out what it is that is causing uh, the allergic reaction. But for Esther, what you just described is a very classic case of allergic reaction. So we'll move on now to Doris' question. Sophia, do you want to read that for us?
Doris is asking, my boy of 4 plus always complain of tummy pain, and most times when we treat him for malaria, afterwards his body will still be hot. What could be the cause?
Because why did you assume that your child's tummy pain is malaria? That is also another thing mothers need to. Let me just tell Nigerian mothers this morning. Please, malaria is not the only reason why children are sick. I don't know why we always assume every time a child is sick, it must be malaria. I know we are living in a country where malaria is very common, very predominant, and because of that, and especially in Nigeria, if you don't treat malaria on time, it can become what we call severe malaria in children below 5. But I think we over treat malaria. And what we have been recommending is that even before you treat malaria, go and have it tested. Go let the doctor see your child, let them test your child. So a child who is having fever, abdominal pain, yes, it could be malaria, but it may not also be malaria. So I could think of so many things. It could be urinary tract infection, for example. It will also give you fever and abdominal pain. And if your child has urinary tract infection, for example, and you're giving anti-malaria, of course, the child will not be better. The fever will still persist. So I think what I want us to take away from to this morning's group, this ATP Live, is the fact that you should always try to know what is causing these symptoms before we go and treat. And I know most of us are our own doctors. Most of us, we treat ourselves and we treat our children, but that is not really appropriate. If your child is having symptoms like fever, what we recommend is that give paracetamol. After 24 hours, the child is not better, take the child to the hospital. Let a doctor have a look at the child. It is when the doctor asks you questions, what are the other things that is coming with the fever? What are the other things that are coming with the abdominal pain? The doctor will also lay hands on the child, examine the child, check the throat, check the ears, check the everywhere, check the tummy. Then the doctor will, from even just the history and examination, the doctor will have an idea what is likely the cause. And it's something we are not very sure, we can do test. So a child with having abdominal pain, for example, I'm going to do a urinary urinalysis or maybe urine MCS, a urine culture, to see whether it's a urinary tract infection. It is after that then they will recommend treatment. So let's not always assume everything must be malaria or typhoid fever. I think that if there's any message I want you guys to take home today, it is the fact that there are so many other things, there are so many other infections, and there are so many other causes of fever beyond malaria and typhoid. So I hope that is very helpful for Doris. So and you're asking me what could be the cause? I don't know what is the cause because I can't know what is the cause just from what you just told me. I still need to, like I said, ask you a lot more questions. I still need to examine your child. I may even still need to do a lot of tests before I can tell you what is the likely cause of your child's problem. And that is one of the reasons when I tell ATP mothers, we can't do consultation online because we can't always do all these things. I can't examine your child through the internet. So it's difficult sometimes to really be able to say this is it. I may guess these are likely causes, but I may not be able to 100% tell you what is the cause. And that is why I would say go take your child to see a doctor who can physically see the child, examine the child, and tell you what is the problem. Okay, can we move on?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Damilola
Thank you for.
can you read the next question?
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see Damilola's question showing up? Damilola is asking, my 3-year-old daughter is always complaining of itching in her private parts. Can it be infection and what do I use? Okay, so it's possible. It could be, for a 3-year-old, it's possible it could be an infection. You have to really make sure that your child is using like cotton pants, and you also make sure she's being properly wiped after using the toilet. So at 3-year-old, most of them are not very good with cleaning up after themselves. So we really need to assist them. And if she's going to school, you need to make sure that the school is also assisting her. But in a 3-year-old who is always eating her private parts, I'm also worried. I also want to make sure that that child is not having any form of abuse. And so you may want to get a doctor to also just have a look at that. But we know that infection in that area is common in that age because mostly from the hygiene issue point of view, just to be sure. And I'm not going to tell you what to use. By now, you should all know me. Like I said, we don't prescribe antibiotics. We don't prescribe anything. We can't prescribe medication online because your child needs to be properly seen. I need to look at what I'm saying. Oh, yes, and I cannot agree. It's not just because you say, oh, it's itching. There are many reasons why she could itch. She could be reacting to the pants. It could be that maybe you're wearing her a sick pants or something that she's allergic to, and that is why she's itching. So it may not necessarily be an infection. So I cannot conclude it's an infection without seeing the child. I agree with you that infection could be one of the causes. And even if I confirm that it's an infection, we don't do prescription online. So what we still recommend is that you take your child to see a doctor first, who will confirm the cause of the itching, who will exclude the possibility of a child being abused, because that may just be the only sign that that child is going to give to us that the child is being abused. Especially anything that has to do with private parts. I know this may make a lot of mothers uncomfortable, but we are as a pediatrician, we're super alert because that may just be the only sign. And if you mix it, I mean, all of you have heard the story of the other unfortunate incidents in Boko, in Benue State, because that child was seeing doctor, but nobody was really thinking about it. But so we really need to be on the high alerts when mothers tell us this thing, because we need to be sure that that's not what is going on. And okay, most of the time it's not, but you just need to be sure first. And so after that, when your doctor has done all that processes, then that's when they would give you the appropriate prescription. Okay, so we're moving on quickly because of our time.
Okay.
Sophia, can you see what is the next question?
Yes, my gift Okara is asking, my 5-year-old son always complains of stomach ache, especially in the morning. Yesterday was called by the teacher. He threw up like a few weeks ago. Where can I see a gastroenterologist for my son?
I'm not really sure your child really needs to see a gastroenterology first. I think you can just see a normal doctor first. There are many reasons why a child could be throwing up in the morning and especially complaining of stomach pain and all that. I would start with something as simple as constipation. This is the commonest reason why children complain of abdominal pain and they could throw up. It could be something as even the fact that the child doesn't like to go to school. Yes, we also know that can also make the child grow up. So there are so many. It could be what you're giving the child in the morning, the breakfast. Maybe there's a particular food you give. that the child is intolerant of. Some children, for example, have egg allergies. Some children have some other allergies, milk allergy. And if you give them those in the morning, it will make them have pain. So there are many things. Unless you have seen your primary doctor first and they've told you, oh yes, they think it's something more and you need to see a gastroenterologist. Yes. But if not, I think you just see every average pediatrician first. But if you want to see a gastroenterologist, the best place to see them are in the teaching hospital. So most of the specialists, most of what we call the super specialist. So your pediatrician is a specialist. So we have general pediatricians, but you also have what we call specialists, even in each part of the body. Even for children has their own specialist. So you have a pediatric neurologist for the brain. You have a pediatric nephrologist for the kidney. You have a pediatric gastroenterologist for the digestive tracts and the liver and things like that. So they are most of them are always available in the teaching hospital. So the best choice is to go to the closest teaching hospital to you. Yes, I hope that is helpful. So we're moving on quickly. Okay, so because I just say my children have recurring skin itching due to relocation, what can be done? I'm not sure I know what you mean by relocation causing itching. So maybe most likely you're saying that they are allergic to something in the environment. So if that's the case, then you may want to number one, for anything allergy, the most important thing is to know what is causing the allergy. What is the child reacting to? What are they allergic to? Is it something that you can eliminate? Is it something that you can get rid of? Because that is the simple solution to allergies. Once you know what the child is allergic to, for example, if you move to a place where there's a lot of all these insect bites, and those are what is causing the children to have itching and allergy, then you can think about maybe wearing them clothes, making sure they stay indoors, and clothes that cover their bodies, and clearing the bushes around the area, things like that. The important thing is to get rid of the thing that the child is allergic to. Once you get rid of that, then the allergies that will stop. But why you are still trying to get rid of the trigger for the allergy, you can give all the anti-allergic medications, so which your pediatricians or your doctors can prescribe. So we have what we call antihistamines and drugs that kind of help to subdue the itching and the allergic reaction. So you can give all that. But the primary thing first is to make sure if you can get rid of what the children are allergic to. I think that will be very, very super helpful. All right, so let's move on. Okay, Christy is asking, good morning, ma. Please, my son is always having cough, and each time he does test, infection is diagnosed and treated with antibiotic. And my question is, what is the effect of too much antibiotics in the body? Very good, because the number one, the most important thing that too much antibiotics will cause is antibiotic resistance. And I'm not quite clear why your child is always having cough and is always having chest infection. It is not typical for a healthy child to be having chest infection all the time. So when a child is having recurrent infection, the first question we want to know is, why is this child having this recurrent infection? I mean, it's okay for a child to have infection maybe once in a year or maybe once in 2 years. But if your child is having like infections every week, number one, is either the infection is being overdiagnosed. In other words, the child doesn't even have infection in the first place. For example, a child who is having asthma will always be coughing, and the child doesn't necessarily have infection. It's from the asthma. But sometimes people just think, oh, the child has cough, then it's infection. No. So the first thing is to know, why is the child having and even if it's infection itself, you want to also know, why is the child having recurrent infections, and address it. Is it that the child immune system is there something wrong with the immune system, or is it something going on, like children who have immunosuppressive diseases, like HIV and things like that, could have recurrent infections. I'm not saying that's what your child has. I'm just telling you what are the things that could be making a child having recurrent infection. If a child is malnourished, malnutrition will make a child to be having recurrent infection. And the solution first is to address the underlying reason why that child is having recurrent infections, so that the recurrent infection will stop, and not that we should just keep loading the child with antibiotics. And that is why for this kind of cases, we always recommend that you see a pediatrician, and we always recommend that you go to like a teaching hospitals, because it is easier for those things to be properly evaluated at the teaching hospital compared to, because in teaching hospitals you have professionals, specialists in so many areas, and there are people that they are professional that deals with things like immune system, and they will be interested in why is this child having recurrent infection and all. So too much antibiotics will cause antibiotic resistance, which means that when your child eventually now need a particular antibiotics, the antibiotics will not be working. And if we don't have an alternative, that is like a death sentence, because that means there's no treatment for that child. So you don't really want to keep on using antibiotics all the time. So, Christy, I would recommend that you see a doctor who could properly first evaluate to know why your child is having recurrent infection, and possibly also help you to address the underlying reason. And when that is addressed, then you can now talk about the way forward, so that your child don't keep getting antibiotics all the time. All right, let's move on. Sophia, can you read Chinwe's question?
Yes, ma'am.
Please read it.
I can hear you, ma'am.
Can you read the question? Can you see the question showing on the screen?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I think there's some gap in your connection. Okay, Chinyere is asking, there's this small hole in my foot. When it was, water will come out, then it dry up after some day, another one will be out. Oh, wow, that's an infection going on in your foot, your Chinyere. And I think it's better you see a pediatrician immediately who will, I mean, well, I guess you're an adult, so see your own doctor properly, who will help you with that as well. Okay, let's move on quickly because of our time. Damilola is saying, whenever I take my baby of 6 months to the hospital, sometimes because of illness is very, the doctor is always saying it's infection. What kind of infection can that be? Because they don't explain. It's almost, unfortunately, Damilola, I can't explain too, because I didn't see your child. So it is the doctor that you really need to insist on telling you what is in the infection in your child, because you really need to let them explain to you what it is. And please don't be afraid to ask your doctor question. It is your right. It is your right to know what it is. Number one, your 6-month-old should not be having infection. Your 6-month-old should be on exclusive breastfeeding. Your 6-month-old should be well protected, and your 6-month-old should not be having infection. So if your 6-month-old is having, and you say each time you take your 6-month-old, so I'm wondering, how many times have you taken a 6-month-old to the hospital, and how many times have they told this infection? So I really think you really need to ask your doctor that question: what is the infection? Where is the infection? What can be done? Because they are the one that is making diagnosis of infection. And so they are the one that will be able to answer that question, unfortunately, because we don't know what it is. So we can't really say what is it. I'm not even sure whether the child has infection in the first place. So, and the question is why your child having fever as well. So this is your doctor that can actually help you answer that question. So Adebimpe is asking, good morning, ma'am. My daughter of 3 years plus was stolen with fever for like 2 days last week, and a doctor prescribed Sinas, which we completed on Sunday, but she's still complaining of stomach pain and fever has been on and off. What do I do, ma'am? You have to go back to your doctor. So the doctor will prescribe the antibiotics. Anytime you have been treated by a doctor and you are not better, or your child is not better, you have to go back to that same doctor for a follow-up. And then the doctor, because there's something the doctor saw and that make him or her to prescribe your antibiotics. So, and you're supposed to use the antibiotics, your child is supposed to get better. And if your child is not better, then you have to go back and see the doctor to know what it is again. So I'm not sure whether your doctor did some tests and all that before they give you the antibiotics. Because sometimes to know the right antibiotics to use, we need to do basic blood tests, and we need to do a basic culture. For example, a child who is having fever and stooling for 2 days, I'm not going to give antibiotics at the beginning. But maybe there are other things that your doctor saw that make him to give antibiotics. So but now you are saying the child is still having a fever, and so the question is it really infection to start with? And what kind of infection is it? Is it something that requires antibiotics? Is it something that... So there are many questions to ask around that. But because we are not the one that saw the child, the doctor who saw the child knows the answers to all that, because the doctor would have asked you. So you may want to ask your doctor for that first, so that the doctor can help you with that. Okay, so take it back for follow-up. Then Rufai Aisha is asking, running nose non-stop. No, most likely it's an allergic reaction. Running nose could be from viral infections, but they don't require any antibiotics. But if it is running nose that is on and on recurrently, most times they are from allergic reactions. Okay, so what you need to do is, we have a group discussion last week about allergic reactions and allergic rhinitis. So you may want to go and read about it. And like I said, for every allergy, the most important thing is to know what triggers it off and to avoid it if you can. If you can't, you just deal with it each episode on its own. So that's basically what is recommended. Amule Yeodufunke is saying, my child was treated in the hospital late last month for throat infection and malaria. It was placed on antibiotics, vomiting, malaria and infection. I don't know. He woke up today with fever and he's a very big boy. What do I do? That's the difference. So I always don't get it when parents ask questions like this, because your child had a throat infection and I was treated. Now he's having a boil. And I know the unspoken question was that the child just have antibiotics a few weeks ago, last month. Now the child has another infection this month. Are you wondering whether the child will need treatment? The child definitely is going to need another treatment, because this time around the child is having a different infection, and the treatment you took last month is not going to cover the one for this month, because the treatment you took last month covered the throat infection. Now your baby is having boil, which is a different infection on the skin, so it's going to require another treatment. So you really need to go back to the doctor again for another antibiotic treatment. Now, my question to you is that why is your child having this recurrent infection? That is my own question. Why is the child have throat infection last week? Now the child is back again with boil. What is going on? Is this something you are doing? Is this something about what your child is being exposed to? Or is this something with the child's immune system? So those are the questions I would be worried about as a pediatrician. So I'm going to be worried about, what is the hygiene environment like? Is this child going to a crèche or to a school? How are they doing it? Is he washing his hand regularly? Is he having basic personal hygiene, basic environmental hygiene processes? Are you really maintaining all that? Making sure you're washing their hands, making sure you're putting antiseptic in the bath water and things like that. Or is there something wrong with the child's immune system? Is it that the child is not able to fight? Because the honest truth is that we are exposed to these germs every day. We're exposed to them every day. But the only reason why we are all not sick is because we have something in our body, our immune system, which is fighting these germs. So most times you are exposed to bacteria, and that's what happens in people who have HIV/AIDS. They are also exposed to the same germs we are exposed to, we are all exposed to, but we don't force it, but they force it because they are immunodeficient. So in other words, their immune system cannot fight those bacteria, and so they kept on having recurrent infections all the time. So the question is, why is your child having... So number one, about the boy, the child needs to be treated. That is a separate infection. With the fact that the child was treated last month does not mean to cover this month. The child still needs another treatment, and this is a different part of the body. It's not even the same throat before. But more importantly, when you go back to the hospital this time around, you and your doctor should have that conversation about, why is my child coming down with infections every month? Why? That is not normal. That is not proper, because you didn't tell us how old your child is, but it is not proper for a child to always have infections every month. It is not. So there's something going on that we must explore and we must address immediately. Okay, so let's move on. Sophie, are you back with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see the question? Please read. Can you see? It's like you can't see.
Hello, ma'am.
Can you see the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not so sure you are really able to see the question today. I don't know whether there's some network issue. Okay, Ogo is asking again, can fever of not up to 38, constant popo, not watery? I don't understand the question because can it be an infection? Okay, I can see your second part. Please always write the question as one complete sentence because we always project it as I don't know what I mean by constant popo, not watery. If a child is not passing watery stool, it is not diarrhea, it is not stooling. So that is not anything to talk about. But the fever, you said of not up to 38. What is it? So anything from 37.5 is fever. Anything from 37.5 is fever. So anything more than 37.5 rather is fever. So you need to know why you had having fever. But like I said, not every fever is infection. Not every fever is infection. So there are many causes of fever in children, and not all of them is infection. So even things like the child being hot, the fact that you wrap the children too much in a hot environment will make the child have fever, but that does not necessarily mean the child is having an infection. Children, when they are dehydrated, their temperature may go up. That does not mean they are having infection. So there are many things. So it is difficult for us to just answer only by just what you say. We really need to know what is going on for us to be able to say whether it's infection or we can't say just by what you told us alone. That's what I'm trying to say. It has to be also from our own examination and all that. So that is what we're going to deal with. Okay, now let's go on. Paul is asking, my baby's eye is always red and itchy and sometimes bring out death. So I don't know. You didn't tell us how old your baby is. You didn't tell us whether how long this has been going on and all that. So there are many things that could make a child's eyes to be itchy and red. It could be what we call conjunctivitis, or it could be it could be and this conjunctivitis could be something like viral or could be bacteria, or it could also be allergic. So it's difficult to say which one your baby has because there are more questions to ask you. So because of that, I would just recommend you see your doctor as first, so that they can help you evaluate your child and know which one it is. Preferably see your doctor or your pediatrician first, and then after that they can now tell you which one it is, whether it's an infection, whether it's an allergic reaction, and all that, and then that will help them to be able to guide you as to what to do. Okay. So that's what I recommend for Paul. I'm going to be rushing now because we have 5 minutes to the end of the program. Amaka is asking, my boy of 5 years complained of stomach bites, I guess stomach pain during, and it's okay. So a child is complaining of stomach pain, especially when he's eating and all that. I really think you should really need to see a pediatrician. We are worried about what we call peptic ulcer disease. That's one of the commonest things that could cause that. May not necessarily be an infection, but you may want to see a pediatrician first for further evaluation. Thank you. And Ola Nikpekwe is asking, my son of 5 years has this eczema looking rash on his face, and almost a year now it has been on and off. We have seen doctors for more than thrice. They prescribe Sabracin cream. Okay, I think you should see a dermatologist this time around. Usually at that level, you should see a dermatologist. If you are treating a rash, it's not going. The specialist, when it is the dermatologist. Okay. And Olayemi is asking, my 3-year-old is always coughing, especially at night. You should see your pediatrician. Most likely it could be an asthma or what we call postnasal drip. So that child really needs to see a pediatrician for further evaluation. So I'm going to rush now because My time is almost up. Comfort is asking, my child of 1 year, 2 months has been having balls, I think boils, okay, and rashes for some time now. It was severe when it was 2 months plus, and it's back again. I've been told it could be it, and what that I should stop administering antibiotics. Thank God. What could be the problem, please? He also doesn't eat much, but suck more even at age. What should I do to make him eat as I plan to stop breastfeeding? Okay, so you have lumped so many questions together. So for your child who's been having recurrent boils and rashes, I would recommend you see a pediatrician or a dermatologist for proper evaluation. I don't believe it could be it, and you should stop the antibiotics truly. So we need to know what kind of rashes your child is having, so that we could know what it is and address it properly, and probably also tell you what you really need to be doing or not doing to make the to help with the rashes itself. So that is number one. And as far as the complementary feeding, because that's a whole topic on its own, which we have dealt with before, you may want to go back and watch our old videos on child nutrition, complementary feeding, and all that. Or if you go to our Facebook group, there's on our units or learning units, there's one on complementary feeding. You will get all the information on how to go about complementary feeding and how to feed your child. All right. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going quickly. Fresh is asking, my child is always swollen and having high fever between December and February. We are admitted 3 times. Wow. Malaria plus white blood cell, which was also not much according to the doctor. I'm really tired of being admitted every time. She stretched a lot, especially after sucking. Please, what could be the cause? So it's really hard for me to say what is the cause. And I was assuming that you have seen doctors for 3 times. Your child has been on admission thrice. Those doctors are the best person to answer that question. And if they are not able to answer you, you really need to see a doctor that can answer that question. And usually I will recommend seeing a pediatrician. Usually I will recommend next time you go to a teaching hospital, so that because it's 8-month-old baby that has been admitted 3 times, I am quite worried about that. What is going on? Why is this child coming in and out of hospital? And obviously, every time it's only malaria, the white blood cell is not so high. So what is going on? And so these are the kind of questions parents need to ask. Actually, when you have contact with your doctors, don't be afraid to ask them questions. Don't be afraid to let them explain to you. They hold you the right to explain to you what they're suspecting, what they think is going on. I can understand the first time, but 2 times, 3rd time in 3 months, your child has been admitted 3 times. I am quite worried about that child, and I think it's important to see a proper specialist. Sorry, sometimes when things are going on, it's not beyond the general practice, then you really need to see a pediatrician who could really do more and help you more to really know what is the answer. Your baby should not be having malaria every month. That's the truth. And make sure the baby is sleeping under the nets and all that. But the question is, I'm not even sure your baby is all the time is malaria. That sounds very strange. All right, Blessing saying, my doctor, hello doctor, my son of 1 year, 2 months is always having fever, and the doctor is always saying malaria. I think it's just exactly the same kind of question. Most of these always having fever, always having malaria. I don't agree with those diagnoses. So you really need to see. So if you have gone to a doctor and the same thing every time, maybe you may want to try a new doctor. And preferably, you may want to go to a teaching hospital. Probably you may want to see a pediatrician, a specialist this time around, because it is not really typical for children to be having malaria every month. Number one, try and prevent malaria. Make sure your children sleep under the insecticide-treated nets. Make sure your environment is clean of, you clear the bushes, you clear malaria mosquito breeding ground. Make sure your children are not getting mosquito bites and all that. But if you are doing all that, your children are always still having fever every month, I think it's maybe more than just malaria, and you may really need to see your doctor. Okay, I think it's still the same question from Blessing, which I just answered. Okay, Lola is asking me, is there anything like a crèche infection, because the doctor was like, any child that goes to crèche are prone to infection. What can we do? Yes, I know what your doctor, there's nothing like crèche infection, but what the doctor is saying is that when a child goes to crèche, the child is exposed to other children who also have infection. So the children just keep catching it from one another. That's the challenge with crèches, because they really need to, most crèches need to be fine with their policy. The policy of any child who is sick stays at home. But I know you mothers, you're also the one that will break those policies. Lord, I need to go to work, I need to do this. Because the truth is that when a child is sick and you take them to crèche, every other child in that crèche has been exposed to that same infection. So by the time your own child is getting better, another one is starting it, then you bring that child back, that the child will keep catching it. So it keeps going on in a circle. It becomes, and that is one of the challenges. In fact, there are times I will have to tell some mothers, you just need to take your child out of crèche. Especially all these children that are coming down with sickness every month. This is actually what is happening to some of them, because every time you're exposing them to a new infection, so they get better this week, another child that started his own is going to infect the other people. So in a proper crèche system, what they recommend is that any child who is sick, fever, cough, anything, stays out of the crèche, stays at home. Because once you bring that child in, then the other children are at risk of catching infection. Another thing is some crèches are not very good with their hygienic practices. Ideally, you should wash your hands before you do anything with any child. And when you finish with that child, you should wash your hands. The commonest carrier of infection is human hands. That's it. It is our hands that carry infection. And in a crèche, one caregiver is attending to like 10 children. She will finish with one. Sometimes she will not wash her hands. She pick up the next one. The infection she has carried from one, she's going to give to the other one. She's going to, and she becomes like a vicious cycle again. So I know that sometimes the crèche people have always had issues with me about this, but that's the honest truth. So it's what crèches that maintain very good policy of no sick child coming to the crèche, no matter what. No sick child is out of the crèche, or they isolate them in another bay. Good policy of making sure they wash their hands all the time before doing anything for a child, after doing something, and it must be a very low, the ratio between the caregiver to the children must be low. All this one where one person is attending to 10, 20 children, it's not, the person cannot do it. But if it is one person to maybe 2 or 3 children, that is still manageable. And then they are maintaining very good standard of hand washing and all those things, very good as well. So these are the reason why children come down with infections all the time in crèches. And so we really need to, if you are taking your child to crèche, you really need to be very firm. You really need to make sure that you know what they are doing, and you are making sure they are doing it properly. It is very, 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 very important. All right. Paul is asking, my baby is 4 years. Each started when he's 1 year. So that's not like an allergic thing. You need to take your child to see a pediatrician. So finally, Kadana is asking, hello, doc. I mentioned last time my baby fingernails were shedding. Okay, yes, I've posted this question. I'm very sorry. I wanted the orthopedic doctors to answer that question. I think it's something like a different condition. It's not like a normal condition. I saw the picture. I think it's something, a particular kind of disease going on in that hand. But usually when we have this kind of question, I always want the person who is the expert in that field answer it. So I tag our orthopedic surgeon who has not gotten to answer the question, but I'm going to follow it up. So just don't worry, I will follow it up. Now that you've told me again, I will personally follow it up. Thank you for your patience. Okay, Ebere is asking, maybe my 2 weeks old baby eye recognition are high, which feels to clear. It will clear. Don't worry. Just leave it. I'm sure they've told you already in the hospital that it will clear. Just leave it alone. It will clear. It's usually from the blood from when your baby was born. We call it subconjunctival hemorrhage. When babies are being born, the blood sometimes splash into their eyes and it will be there, but it will clear. So don't, and I'm very serious about saying don't go and be doing anything to it, because if you are trying to do something, you are going to cause more problem for the baby. Just leave it alone and it will eventually clear. Your baby is just 2 weeks old, which means it has just been there for 2 weeks. So it will clear. You are being impatient because it means your baby has had it only for 2 weeks. So it will clear. The body itself will clear it out. All right, so I think I've answered all the questions I have with me. So let's recap. I've been talking about infections today, and I've talked about the fact that we have different kind of infection. It could be viruses, it could be due to bacteria, it could be due to fungi, it could be due to other organisms like protozoa, like malaria, parasite, and all those kind of things. And the fact that infection could manifest in different ways, fever, vomiting, that it could manifest, and infection could be localized to one part of the body, or it could affect the entire body in the blood, which is circulates around. It could affect virtually any organ system. And the most important is that symptoms of infection could also occur in conditions that are not infections. So it is not every time your child has fever that it is malaria or typhoid. And please, let's just even, if anytime you go to a hospital and the only diagnosis they give in that hospital is malaria and typhoid, you really need to go and change your hospital. And I'm very damn serious about that. You need to start going to hospital where they take more time to evaluate your child, and then they can now look at the child properly to say what is wrong. And sometimes they may need to do tests. There are like 1,000 things, 1,000 types of infection. You have urinary tract infection. People don't even ask for it, and it's one of the commonest causes. Throat infection, ear infections. These are other common infections in children that most people don't even check, because every time child has fever, it's either malaria or type. And you mothers, please stop using antibiotics indiscriminately. All this while everybody is using antibiotics. Your child has fever, go and buy anti-malaria, go and buy antibiotics. It's a very dangerous practice. You are building up antibiotic resistance, and when the children eventually need those antibiotics, they are not going to respond to them, and that is a very dangerous situation to be. So if there's anything you're going to take away, is to say not every fever is malaria, not every fever is typhoid, and not every fever is infection, and not every infection requires antibiotics, because sometimes viral infection don't require antibiotics. Fungal infection requires antifungal, not antibiotics. So when you use antibiotics for what is not a bacterial infection, you are crossing antibiotic resistance. And so that's what we've been talking about today. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you still have questions, you can go to our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician. This program has been brought to you by Ask the Pediatrician Foundation. And you can always go to our Facebook group to ask your question. I'm looking for our Facebook group. You can see the link there. So you can go and ask your questions there, and we will answer you. We're always there 24/6. We don't answer questions yet. We don't answer questions on Sundays. We take a break for all our moderators. But any day, Monday to Saturday, any time of the day, you can drop your questions, and one of our moderators or professionals will address them for you. If you have questions that are very sensitive and you want to go anonymous, you can shoot us an email. Our email is showing on the screen there, and we'll also answer you and then see post it on the group. And so just to let you know that this program has been brought to you by Ask the Pediatrician Foundation, and you can support us, because beyond what we do online, we also do offline. We go to do community medical outreaches. Our next outreach is coming up in May on the during Children's Day celebration, and this time around we're going to be in all the states of Nigeria, and we currently are having our fundraising towards that, and that is our global giving. So if you want to support us, you can go to global giving and donate. If you go to our group, you'll see the link there as well, and the donation is going on from now till the 29th of March. You can donate from $10 to any amount, no limit, $5,000, $10,000, any amount you give us is fine. But just know that whatever you give us is going into outreaches for indigent children who don't have access to internet, who cannot answer questions, and they need it more. And we are committed to making sure that children don't die in Nigeria anymore. So if you want to be part of it, please go on and donate today on Ask the Pediatrician Foundation page on Global Giving. If you want the link, if you go to any of our group, our Facebook group, you will see it there. It's all over the place. You can also reach us and we'll send it to you. So I really want to thank every one of you for joining me this morning, and have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Once again, if you still have your question, post it on our Facebook group and we'll be able to answer you. Thank you. Bye.